Back from the abyss. That's right, it's your boy. It's been a while since I've seen you, but to be fair, I've been pretty busy. And no, that is not a dead body under the blanket, alright? I know this is a horror video and I'm reviewing horror, but these are actually rugs. My mom is a bit of a hoarder. She keeps stuff in my room, so unfortunately that's going to be there. Although it does add to the atmosphere, because I'm pretty sure a lot of you think it's a body. And even though it's not, it does add to effect, right? It makes it look professional. And anyway, I was kidding. The dead body's in the closet. Anyway, today we're going to be reviewing and talking about a brand new series that I've checked out. That's right. Today we're going to actually be talking about some adult horror. Much like the Creepshow review and ranking that I did, today we're going to be doing a ranking for a brand new series that I've gotten into, which is a little bit related to Creepshow in the sense that one of the movies that I covered in my review/ranking, that movie is actually inspired by this series, and it was made as a send-off to this series a couple of years later. So today we're going to be talking about Tales from the Darkside. That's right, the rip-off Twilight Zone show, the adult horror, the weird, bizarre world of this series. I'm going to be delving into that today and talking about the very first season. Now, upon me coming back after a while of not uploading, mostly due to me doing overtime at my work, which is good for adding bucks to my wallet, but it takes away time from doing what I love to do, which is these reviews and stuff. So it's a trade-off, but we're back. Today's my day off. Even though it's been a while, this first season of Tales from the Darkside is kinda... oof. There's a few good ones throughout this entire season, but there's a total of 24 episodes, and from my list, I have my entire list on here of where I rank the episodes. I would say out of these 24 episodes, really only 9 of them I actually enjoyed. My top 5 are ones that I would probably recommend to everybody, and there are only, I guess, 3 that I would really consider to be good, like really good episodes, and only 1 that I think is truly great/brilliant in its own way. So yeah, this season is pretty weak. It's kind of out there. A lot of these episodes are super random, super strange concepts, and it really does feel like a great value Twilight Zone. I feel like some of this stuff may be a little bit better than what Twilight Zone has been made, but yeah, these are very much not like the Tales from the Darkside movie, which is what the first thing of Tales from the Darkside that I watched was the movie. And from watching the first season and watching a little bit of the second season of the show, the movie is nothing like the show. And I think that the movie was more so made as a way for Creepshow's original directors to carry on their vision through that. Because I'm pretty sure the Cat from Hell, which is in the Tales from the Darkside movie, was supposed to be in Creepshow too. So that movie sort of like a continuation of Creepshow more than it is an actual nod to Tales from the Darkside. So that is something to keep in mind. But without further ado, let's get into this review. Considering that it is 24 episodes, I'm going to try to make it quick, but that never ends up being the case. So in case this ends up being longer, I will do the same thing I did with Creepshow and make a top 5 of season 1 thing. So yeah, let's start off. Now, the weakest of these ones are absolutely awful. God fucking awful. What the fuck did I just watch? Absolute visual herpes. You know, the first time you lay your eye on herpes. I don't know if that's been whether through an image or an actual real life encounter. That is what these very bottom of the episodes are. And even the top ones are good, but they're nothing extraordinary. And the middling/eh ones are kind of just leaving you like, you know, they just kind of leave you with more desire. It's kind of like on Christmas, you get, you know, a whole case of Irish Spring body soap and, you know, related products. It's like, I was expecting a little bit more, Mom. I thought you loved me a little bit more. Turns out you don't. That's what this is. All right, so let's start off. At number 24 in Tales from the Darkside Season 1 is Jin No Chaser. Now, this episode is about basically this couple who discovers a genie, and the beginning starts off with this very over-the-top comedic perspective of the guy being in a mental ward, talking to some therapist or psychiatrist, and he's basically telling him this ridiculous story, and as he tells it, it's basically him and his partner were walking across some, like, street where there's like some sales going on or something. I don't know, some like street venue sales. And then this random big tent appeared, and this tent had all this, Middle Eastern ancient souvenirs in it. And one of them was this huge genie bottle that they take home with them. And they find out, yeah, there may or may not be an actual genie in there. And it goes down a very over dramatic, crazy route. And this episode is fucking dog shit. This episode fucking sucks. It is straight garbaggio trash. Like, it tries to be so on the nose, over the top funny, but it does not make you laugh. It's just a guy making these obnoxious jokes and like some dad joke mannerism. Like, it just seems like your dad trying to be funny and telling a story to you. That's what it feels like with the perspective of the main character. And all the shit that happens in this episode is so fucking dumb. Yo, this genie apparently tries to like rain down the wrath of God upon them, and it's like they open up the hallway to their apartment complex, and there's like, you don't see it, but it's implied to be like elephants and tigers at the end of the hall. And then like the guy will just be like, oh, I wonder how we got the elephant into this apartment. It must have taken a bigger elevator or some stupid shit like that. He just says some dumb shit. Like, every time something stupid happens, he makes some type of stupid joke, some dad type of joke. Really corny. There's no horror. It's just really funny, kind of absurd stuff that happens to him. I say funny because it's meant to be funny, but it's not really funny. It's just kind of stupid. It feels very cartoonish, very Looney Tunes without the charm. And then there is a special feature from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but he's very underutilized. He's kind of using this very stupid role. As soon as he's revealed, there's like some weird kind of affair thing that's hinted between him and the main character's partner. Like, did they have something going on? It's just made as a joke, but you don't know if it actually happened or like if it didn't happen. And yeah, this whole episode is really stupid. It feels like a Looney Tunes episode of a lot of goofy stuff happening. It has very predictable, premise. You find a genie bottle, the wishes go wrong, but it's done in a very comically exaggerated way. And the perspective of the main character, he's a super corny dad joke kind of guy. And yeah, I mean, it's meant to be over the top and comedic, but it doesn't land in any of them. And it's, honest to God, one of the longest and worst fucking things I've watched. It gets a 1 out of 10. The Jin No Chaser gets a 1 out of 10. It goes in the Creepshow 3 tier of straight garbage. This is straight septic tank scum. I would not recommend this on my worst enemy. All right, for any of you who like this, you need to go to the same psychiatrics that this guy went to in the episode, because that psychiatric must have lost his own goddamn mind, and that's the only kind of people that can deal with people who enjoy this episode whatsoever. So yeah, Jin No Chaser gets a 1 out of 10. Next up, number 23 on my season 1 ranking is Grandma's Last Wish. Now this one is hands down the most fucking obnoxious episode I have ever watched in the season. One of the most obnoxious episodes I've watched, I think, in adult horror medium, period. I mean, Creepshow 3 is up there, but this segment is straight, God, Jesus, awful. Grandma's Last Wish starts off with basically this terrible family who's bickering and arguing with each other from like the first minute of the episode. The first minute of the episode is these guys arguing with each other. It's the grandma acting like a super stereotypical old woman where she's like, where my dentures go? You got any more dill pickles in the fridge? Jenny, you get my crush from, this reminds me of my homecoming dance in 1968. Paul Julius done laid the pipe down on a while ago. It was a while ago, but he laid the pipe down. That's how I met your grandfather. Where my dress shoes go? That kind of stupid old people shit, very over the top, senile old woman, kind of the character. The mom is annoying. She's just kind of a bitch. She's always on the phone talking with her friend, complaining. The daughter is absolutely annoying. She's just like super like some brat out of Grease. Like if you took a high schooler who was, playing like some girl off of Grease and amped up her annoyingness to 20, this is what this girl is. She's like yelling and screaming for no reason, complaining that her mom needs to give her the phone because the guy that she likes might call her. It's super fucking annoying. And then the dad is like some bimbo who's like a mama's boy. Like he's super like taken care of by his grandmother, and he just sort of just goes around the house and eats stuff, picks stuff out of the fridge, doesn't really do anything. So yeah, this whole beginning is just them arguing with each other, and the episode is basically about them wanting to get the senile old woman out of the house. They want to put her in a retirement home, and let's just say her birthday's coming up. This is her birthday present, to go to a retirement home. That's fucked up. And then she, let's say, makes a wish on her cake, and that wish may or may not start coming true. Let's just say she gets a little bit of revenge by letting them feel what she feels on an everyday basis. Take that how you will. I don't want to spoil too much, but that is the episode. This episode is super fucking annoying. The banter and dialogue between the family, it feels like, claws, like a tiger's claws scraping against chalkboard. It is super annoying. You don't want to hear it. The premise is super simple, super stupid. It kind of just happens out of the blue. There's no real explanation or hints as to how any of this involving, the stuff involving her wish happens. You don't get any bit of that. So just completely random, just something that occurs. And really, other than the family getting some punishment, you don't really experience anything else aside from that. There's no enjoyment in this episode. Even the victory for the old woman, in a sense, she's not an enjoyable character. She's just an over-the-top senile old woman that's always, pretending like she's got dementia and, can't remember anything. But then as soon as her wish starts coming, all of a sudden she becomes hyper-focused and, ready to go. Like, I don't know, It gets a 1 out of 10. This Grandma's Last Wish gets a 1 out of 10. That is 2 1 out of 10 episodes, all right? Next one is number 22 on my list, which is called Slippage. Slippage is about these 2 college kids, I think they're college kids, who are working part-time jobs at this, I think, graphic designing place or architecture place where they draw blueprints. One of the main characters, or I guess in this case the main character, is just drawing portraits. He just likes doing art, and he kind of goofs off. And his other friend is kind of like a rival in a sense. His other friend is seemingly lucky. He gets the better job opportunities. He gets a phone call from a company that, both of them have been wanting to apply to. The other guy gets accepted. And then when this guy calls that phone company, or no, not the phone company, but calls the designing company to see if his portfolio got looked at and if he got the job, they right away go, oh, we can't find your portfolio. We don't know who you are or where it went. But, maybe we'll take a look later. Unfortunately, we'll just call you back. And then they just hang up, and the guy's like, how could they lose my portfolio? I remember sending it to them. I had everything in there. I double-checked. How could they just misplace my portfolio? Is this bad luck? You see kind of in his love life, he has a girlfriend, but you get the sense that she's kind of with him just because of the potential success he can have at this company that he promises. So she's kind of like a gold digger in a sense. We don't really know if she actually loves him or if it's a gold digger, but I guess by the end you kind of find out. And essentially what ends up happening is this guy feels like he's losing his identity. He doesn't get invited to his high school reunion, even though he knew the guy who set it up. So that's his friend setting it up, and somehow he doesn't get the invite. They say that they lost his portfolio at the company he applied to. So he's like, how come all this bad luck is happening to me? How come I feel like everybody's forgetting me? And then when he goes to his mother's house to kind of get some refuge, kind of feel like, maybe I can find some help or get some advice, even his own mother can't recognize him. His own mother doesn't know who he is. And you kind of get a little bit of a emotional tug where he's like, he's kind of like hoping his mom can, kind of recognize him. Maybe she's playing a joke. Maybe this is all one big prank going on. Maybe he's losing it. Maybe it's a dream. But nothing so far indicates it's a dream. This feels very much like reality. And he feels like, why do I feel like I don't exist anymore? Did my identity get stolen? Have I been hacked? Have I been hit by a scam or something? What's going on? But my mother doesn't recognize me, so maybe, it's her dementia or something. He runs away. His friend and his girlfriend tries basically finding him. And then you get into this super strange, unexplained twist to the story, which is hinted by the name of the episode, where we could potentially be dealing with alternate dimensions and how parallel worlds can collide with each other, how they're interlocked with each other. There is a certain feature to reality, a certain object that may be playing a role, acting as a window to this parallel world. And maybe that's behind it, but you get zero explanation, you get nothing. Essentially, the whole story is just this guy who feels very bitter about not being included or recognized. He feels like he loses his identity, and then when he runs away, he kind of just reveals this reality, what may actually be going on. And then you get this twist involving the friend, where the direction the story may be going down is maybe in the favor of somebody, or maybe that somebody had something to do with it. You don't really know. You don't get answers. It goes down a very confusing alternate Twilight Zone world route out of nowhere, and it really leaves you with nothing. The end of the story just kind of feels like you got cucked because the main character got cucked, and that's really all it is. I didn't find it enjoyable. I didn't find it anything interesting, and it felt very confusing, very out there. So I gave Slippage a 2 out of 10. So yeah. Next one, number 21. We're still on the garbage tier. These are all garbage tier episodes. So there's going to be quite a bit more than usual. Number 21 on my list is If the Shoe Fits. Now, this episode is possibly the most insultingly bad episode I have probably watched. Now, Jin No Chaser is straight up horrible because it feels like they failed doing what they tried to do, but you did get the sense that it wasn't taken seriously. I don't know what's going on in If the Shoe Fits, but this entire episode is a political commentary done in the most comically exaggerated way possible. It is nothing but showing how corrupt politicians are with this one mayor guy. Now, briefly over the premise of the story, there is this mayor or a guy who's running either for mayor or president. I think it's president. A guy who's running for president. He's very pretentious. He's kind of a douchebag. He's a very over-the-top politician who basically brags about how it doesn't matter what you're saying. All that matters is how you're saying it. And if whatever you say sounds good to the American public, that's how you get elected. That's what this guy is. He cares very much about his image, a very bright, magnetic personality, but he doesn't actually care about politics or what he's actually talking about. He just cares about getting elected and winning. That's all he cares about. And he goes into this hotel, and at this hotel, if he starts getting these senses that it may be haunted, maybe there's somebody or something manipulating it, maybe he's being pranked, because the employees at this hotel start acting very strange around him. And then he starts experiencing this psychosis and very strange happenings to him, which may or may not be responsible by the employees. Maybe it's responsible by some outside force. Maybe this is all within his head. You don't know. You don't really get an explanation. But all this weird shit starts happening throughout the episode, and it just keeps hammering this political commentary. There is no horror. It is very over the top. It feels like a parody. It is, I think, a parody of something, but I don't know what it's parodizing. It's really stupid. There's no enjoyment that comes out of it. I hope whoever made and directed this episode gets food poisoning from some bad takeout. You left that Chinese food out for 3 days on the countertop. You took a couple bites and all of a sudden you're fucked. All right. Or worse thing, you ordered from some family-owned restaurant in New York down some alleyway, which is terrible. That's not what you do. But that's what you did, and that's why you made this episode. So yeah, that's the only explanation I could get as to why you did it. This entire thing is not enjoyable. It does not belong in a series about bizarre and strange and the dark side of reality. There's nothing dark about this. It is just straight, comically exaggerated stupidness, all regarding political commentary. So yeah, that is If the Shoe Fits. Next one, number 20, is All Comes Out in the Wash. If the Shoe Fits got a 2 out of 10. This next one also gets a 2 out of 10. We are still in the garbage category. Next one is All Comes Out in the Wash. This one is about a business tycoon who is a complete douchebag, a very dickhead guy who basically cheats on his wife, has affairs with his wife. He doesn't care about people's lives. He just wants to get money, and he'll abuse and manipulate people if he has to do that. He has a secretary who's always trying to basically pipe him, and he always rejects her and shit talks her and ignores her, doesn't ever give her any attention, treats her like shit. He goes to this laundromat owned by this Chinese guy who essentially, he goes there because his friend promised that if you go there and you get your clothes washed here, that all of your sins come out in the wash. Any feelings of guilt, remorse, negative emotions that you've had throughout your life will basically go away after you wash your clothes here. And this is basically huge for him because he's a business tycoon who's a complete dick. So he has his whole life worth of negative emotions and guilt and potential remorse. He gets rid of that, and he's a completely brand new man, and he doesn't feel any guilt about doing the shit that he does. He will live a completely happy life, still fucking people over. So he goes there, and then this Chinese owner basically tells him, like, you cannot tell anybody about this wash. Don't call me. Don't contact me. Do not ask me when these clothes will come. Do not tell anybody about it. This is all secret. Hush, hush. And of course, let's just say the main character doesn't follow these rules. The Chinese guy talks about luck and fate when he talks about the lottery, how he wants to win the lottery. So he's basically this very nonchalant Chinese owner, and the main guy is super obsessed. He wants to wash away all of his sins. However, he becomes very impatient as the weeks go on, and he realizes that the prices on this clothing wash are basically doubling and increasing. So he kind of feels like he's being ripped off. He doesn't know if this is actually going to work, and yet he's paying all this money. So eventually he keeps on breaking some of the rules, and then you do find out what actually happens at the end. And the ending is so fucking stupid. The climax leads to absolutely nowhere because what you think is gonna happen does not happen. It goes down this complete 180 where basically one character decides, fuck it, forget everything that I promised or it's been happening throughout this episode. It is all gonna go away. I just decided to leave this story. And then it goes down a 0 to 100 real quick Drake bar ending for the story where certain characters do certain things that are very absurd, and it ends on that absurdity. It ends on a dark note, but the dark note ends in a completely stupid way because everything that you expected out of the story goes out in the wash. Oh, you didn't expect that pun, but it came. Listen, man, this gets a 2 out of 10 as well. This was fucking dog shit. And that will be a trend for the next 2 more episodes, and after that it starts getting a little bit better. So that gets a 2 out of 10. All comes out in the wash. This is straight up 5 in a row garbage from season 1. Do you get what I'm saying? This season is full of a lot of shit that I had to watch. Literal shit. So yeah. Next one is number 19, The Tear Collector. Now, I'll be honest, this one I do not remember a whole lot about because it was so forgettable and so bad. However, if I recall, it is about this woman who's the main character, and she essentially loves crying. She's always crying. She's always, tearing up and letting out her emotions. And I guess she's obsessed with that. It's like an addiction to her. She has an addiction to crying, and it kind of cost her relationships with people, and it cost her the ability to get with a lover because all they talk about is how she has to smile and feel happy and ways that she can become happier, but she actually feels good crying. And it's like an addiction to her, so basically nobody can relate to her except for like a very scant few friends who have been with her for a while. And then she meets this guy who promises to take her to therapy. This one alleged therapist guy she meets, who's very handsome. She kind of feels like she's gaining some feelings for him. And he takes her to his office to do a little bit of a, therapeutic study on her. And she realizes that he has this glass vase that is shaped like a swan. And as she's talking to him and she's crying, he kind of says like, yo, not in a weird way, but I kind of want to collect your tears. And he puts the little end of the jar right up to her eyes, and he collects every tear that comes down. And he basically stores onto her tears, and he feels like they have emotional weight to them. He feels like tears are a souvenir, and he feels like her tears are very valuable. So he holds on to them, and then she keeps on going to him. She keeps on meeting with them in the hopes of, eventually finding maybe, the fact that they could become lovers. They could become, boyfriend and girlfriend. But he's kind of doing it just to use her and not abuse her, but he's basically using her just for her tears. She doesn't know why. And then one day she basically goes in, tries to find out why he's doing this, what's his real motive. And let's just say he may be in a way doing an affair, even though, he's not in a relationship with her, but he may be cheating on her, quote unquote. And maybe there's more to his fetishizing tears than there may seem. It doesn't go down a strange route, but more so like the name, the Tear Collector. It's basically that. And then it goes down this very like pseudo-heroic moment for the main character, and then it just kind of ends there. I forgot how it ended, but I remember it ending on a very just sort of whatever note. Like she just kind of goes in there, does something, and then bam, it just ends. It doesn't really end in any type of dark twist or any reveal. No, it's just very left ambiguous, and it's not good. So Tear Collector gets a 3 out of 10. This story is basically a whole lot of nothing. You feel like it might go down this very creepy route. It only is up this high because at first it felt very creepy and very kind of serial killer-ish, and maybe there's something more going on, but it goes down nowhere, and it just sort of ends on a wet fart, whatever ending. So it gets a 3 out of 10. Next up is the episode that I fell asleep to the most, which is number 18 on my list, which is Painkiller. I probably fell asleep damn near almost 10 times this episode. And this episode was so bad, so forgettable that I had to rewatch it. I literally forgot what happened in this one. So Painkiller is about this couple that lives together, this old, fat Mario-looking guy, and then he has his wife who's an absolute bitch. All she cares about is him becoming successful, him getting money like her brother does, him becoming a manager or CEO or whatever. He's just sort of living his life, kind of living happily. She makes him study, she makes him do stuff. Even though she's a housewife, she doesn't go out and make any money. All she does is bet and kind of, I think all she does is like buy stuff and like bet maybe, I don't know what she does, but she doesn't do anything, and she makes him do all the work and all the studying, and then she treats him like shit. So she's a terrible wife. And then one night as he's getting up from studying a little bit and goes to the fridge, he collapses on the floor and he realizes that he has really bad back pain. And instead of his wife helping him, she just puts a blanket on the floor for him and then makes him sleep there. And then she just says, oh, I can finally get some nice, good sleep by myself for a while. Fuck you, bitch. But that's what she does. These bitches ain't shit. That's this guy's life. So he starts feeling this back pain. She feels like he's exaggerating and just trying to find a way to get out of work, find a way to get out of studying, and basically find a way to get out of becoming something. And, she gives him a really hard time. He goes to visit the doctor, and then that night that he's laying on the floor, he swears he sees a face in the window by this storm going on. So there's this rain, this storm going on. He swears he sees a face. He freaks out. He tells his wife. His wife thinks, he's going crazy. Maybe he's hallucinating. And then as they meet this new doctor that could potentially help out his back pain, he realizes that the doctor has the same face of the guy that he saw at the window the night before. So he kind of freaks out and feels like there may be something more going on. And then the doctor promises eventually that he can help fix this guy after, I don't know how long of him having a brace on him trying to heal. But it comes with a very dark cost. And let's just say there may be more to this doctor than meets the eye, and there may be a very dark deal going on with how to solve pain. It may cost something in return. Whether that's good or bad really depends on you, and it depends on the main character's motivations right now. That is Painkiller. It's a very kind of trash episode. This one got a 4 out of 10. The wife is super annoying and bitchy. She's meant to be, but it doesn't make it enjoyable. The main character is very stupid and sort of like a lummox. He just sort of walks around, goes through life, and doesn't really think twice about what's happening in his life. And then even when he's in bad situations, he kind of just follows like a sheep. And then when he gets caught like a deer in headlights, he doesn't do anything about it. So a very stupid main character. And the doctor thing was pretty cool. It could have led somewhere, but again, the ending is very ambiguous. It does not really solidify. You think maybe you know what this is leading to, but you don't really know the identity of the figure by the end. And although it is a dark concept, the rest of this episode is so boring, it's so dragging, so meandering, that you wish it could have explored more on what the ending was going for. So yeah, Painkiller gets a 4 out of 10. Number 17 on my list is The False Prophet. Now, The False Prophet actually gets a 5 out of 10. This is my last bad episode, in a sense. The other ones after this aren't really good for a little bit. They're sort of decent to meh, but this one is the last kind of bad one. The False Prophet involves this main character who's super into astrology and, predictions and future readings and the idea of fate and meeting a lover, aka every red flag upon meeting a woman possible, or really any date possible. If any date you meet talks about astrology and all this random bullshit as their main thing in deciding their life, that is 100 fucking red flags. Do not go for them. Kidding, not kidding. So this woman, she does a great job acting throughout this episode. She's on her way from a fortune told to her by this famous fortune teller in her area that said you have to follow down this route, go on this bus, and meet at this one station and go to Texas where you will find your lover, the lover of your life, the true soulmate for you. Of course, she believes this and follows everything blindly. And as she gets there, she discovers this machine, which is supposed to be, I guess, the son or predecessor of this fortune teller, which makes you think maybe she was talking to this fortune telling machine in her area, and now she meets this like new version. I don't know if this thing is supposed to be like an invention, or maybe it's like the latest model of the fortune telling machine that she used to get here to meet her lover. But this thing is very strange. It is this episode goes down a route where it's basically like the clash of fates, where should she trust this new fortune telling machine, or should she just listen to the one that, the one before, or should she listen to some strangers that she meets? Goes down that weird kind of supernatural thing. The machine in this story, the fortune-telling machine, it's kind of like the main villain character. It is very strange. It has this very sort of sexual, erotic tension to it. A lot of this episode feels like a bad porno setup where basically this machine will tell her like to put her hands on him. It's a machine with like a man, like a male AI, and it's like telling her like, yeah, put your hands on me, rub against me. And I'm like, what the fuck? This is a machine. This is the AI. Why is the AI horny? She can't fuck you, bro. You're made out of gizmos and gadgets. She can't fuck you, bro. But he's super horny. He wants that shit. He wants her all over him. And he's like begging her to get all over him. So I'm just like, what the fuck? So that's basically what, this episode kind of goes down, where basically he's like, yeah, come rub up on me, listen to me if you want your life to be right. And then this machine starts apparently going like, yeah, I'm your true lover. And I'm sitting there like, all right, I'm about to piece the fuck out. What is happening here? This is about to go down some weird hentai route. I don't know where this is going. And then it just goes down some crazy action shit, and then the ending is sort of just whatever. Maybe it's a supernatural fortune-telling machine. Maybe it's not. You will find out, I guess. That is The False Prophet. It gets a 5 out of 10. It had a lot of weird sexual tension in it. It had a weird kind of premise to it. It didn't really make a lot of sense to me. It gets a 5 out of 10. Really, only the acting of the main character is good enough that it kind of warrants this 5 out of 10. Otherwise, it's not a good episode. So that ends off kind of the bad ones, and then I'm going to be going through some of the man ones. If this video goes on, I may just make a two-parter that doesn't just involve the top 5. It may just involve the second half of these. We'll see. I might just get to number 13 and then cut this in half. So number 16 is the first one to kind of break out of the bad episodes into a meh to not good episode, which is number 16, Mookie and Pookie. Now, Mookie and Pookie, tongue twister, gets a 5 out of 10. This one is essentially about these pair of twins. It starts off with one of the girl twin, and her parents are basically playing, I think, Scrabble. And the guy twin is upstairs, and he's basically medically ridden, right? He's kind of, attached to a bunch of IVs. He's kind of in a medically bad place. He's got bad health, and it may be kind of hinted that his time may be ending, might be ending soon. But he's always on computers all day, and he talks through computers because since he's so weak all the time and doesn't have energy, he can still be downstairs and interacting with his family, but it just has to be through, a radio or through a computer that he's hooked up there. So then as he basically, I guess, ends up getting this vision or this feeling that his time may be coming up very, very soon, as he's about to basically die or pass away, he passes on this computer program that he's been working on to his twin sister. And his twin sister basically starts taking on this program after his death, starts working on it to complete it. And let's just say the rest of the story may be going down some alternate identity, the power of computers, the power of technology, and basically can consciousness be transported into gadgets? Something that's been talked about in very much the recent age, but this is sort of back then. But the technology and stuff in this episode is very outdated. And it's a very kind of happy-go-lucky episode. It has a very happy-go-lucky ending. And it does not feel like a Darkside kind of episode or reality because it's all extremely kind of happy-go-lucky. It feels like maybe something you might see on Disney Channel. And for that reason, I gave it a 5.5. It's not really dark. It's not really creepy. It's not really bizarre. It's a little bit out there, a little bit strange, but even when it gets to the tension, it's not like a dark tension. It's more so like family tensions and family drama. And, it ends off on a very happy note. So it doesn't really do it for me, especially when I'm watching horror. Sometimes heartfelt stuff can be done in a very good way. Actually, the very top story on my list, which is going to be in part 2, does have some heartfelt and emotional stuff, but it's done in a very nice, dark comedy way. Mookie and Pookie is sort of happy-go-lucky, so it gets a 5.5 out of 10. It didn't really do anything for me. Now, the next one, number 15, does take a little bit of a jump. We got a 1 point, or I guess 1 letter jump. And that is number 15, All a Clone by the Telephone. This one got a 6.5 out of 10. Now, that may be a little bit too high for certain people who've watched this one. This episode was definitely not good in its execution. It had some very sort of corny and over-the-top stuff in it that didn't really make it that good. That's why it gets a 6.5, which is basically meh, not whatever. Basically a meh to whatever. But the reason it gets a 6.5 is I do like the concept. This episode basically deals with a guy who maybe connecting to parallel worlds or realities through his answering machine. He gets these strange unknown messages on his answering machine that sort of talks about, stuff that is supposed to happen in his life that's not happening. Like it'll say like, oh, like a phone call from his mother about something that happened, but that didn't actually happen when he finds out that, this is fake. So he feels like, well, am I getting played? Is this a scam? Well, it may be alternate worlds somehow connecting into this answering machine, and it may be alternate realities and timelines, connecting with it, which is a very cool idea. I do like that premise a lot. The idea of connecting to other realities through machines, potentially viewing into that as a form of communication medium. But the execution is not done well. The only reason it gets up there is because I like the premise. So this one gets a 6.5 out of 10. And that's really all there is to it. It's just sort of over the top, goofy. It could have been done well, but it sort of drops the ball and fumbles. Number 14, next one, which is just a little bit higher, is A New Man. Now, New Man might be one of the most confusing episodes in Tale from the Darkside, which is why I dropped its score a lot more upon rethinking. But I do a little bit like the strange mystery aspect, kind of reminded me of a Stephen King premise in a way, where essentially these guys are working in the office, and one of the guys, both these guys have drinking problems, but the main character kind of deals with alcoholism, and it kind of puts a little bit of a gap between him and his family relationship with his wife and his son. And then this new kid shows up at his office place, at his cubicle, and basically claims to be his son. Says, I'm your son, Daddy, take me home. And he's like, who the hell is this kid? I don't know, this stranger. How did he show up? Why is he claiming it? He thinks maybe it's a lost child. Maybe he thinks he's somebody else. He's got it all wrong. He takes him home, and then all of a sudden, to his surprise, his wife is treating it like, that's their son. He should know this. And, his only son is acting like this is his younger brother, and his dad should know this, and they blame it on him drinking again. So right away, the dad is kind of in this physically, this mentally fucked state where he's like, what's going on? Am I hallucinating? Am I having a bad trip? Did I end up drinking? I haven't drunk in like several months. Did I end up drinking somehow and I'm like losing it or something? He doesn't know if he got roofied or something. Could be a lot of possibilities. But essentially his world starts folding in upon itself as, this kid is infesting his life, and, all the people he knows acts like he's known this kid his entire life, but then he's like, this guy's a complete stranger. I don't know him. And then you get this very well-acted emotional breakdown from the main character, which is kind of like his breaking point. You kind of see him freak out and go crazy and kind of fall apart. And then you kind of get the idea maybe this is some psychosis stuff going on. But then the very ending to this story basically hints that there may be some entity or outside force that is not just affecting this guy's life, but maybe affecting other people's lives, like some kind of virus. It is very vague and ambiguous. It doesn't fully explain things. So for that reason, this one only got a 6.6, only a little bit higher than All Alone by the Telephone. This one did remind me a lot of what Stephen King says in his interviews about not everything needs an explanation, but it can just be some creepy stuff. Although I do agree with that, this one is a little bit too confusing and ambiguous for me. I feel like that mystery stuff can be done in a good enough way, and although there are parts of this episode which I really enjoy, I like the main character's acting. I like the premise of this random kid infesting somebody's life and kind of changing their mentality and making them think they're going crazy. I like the little twist ending at the end where it's like maybe this is something more than meets the eye. And then the emotional breakdown was very good, just seeing him kind of deteriorate. So yeah, it gets a 6.6. This was sort of just a meh episode, but it had potential that just didn't reach it. I think the same way I would treat All Alone by the Telephone, which is something that had potential but didn't reach it. Now, this is the last story that's going to be for this first half of the video, which is number 13 on my list, called Snip Snip. Now, Snip Snip is a very ridiculous and absurd idea, but I do kind of enjoy it for that reason, because I think it is well acted enough and has a little bit of charm to it to where it's not terrible. Snip Snip is about this guy who basically is trying to win the lottery. He wants to win the big prize money, multi-million dollars. I think it's $10 million. So that way he can retire and quit his workplace, and that way he doesn't have to teach kids anymore. He's like a mathematics professor at a college, but he hates teaching the new kids because they don't feel like learning and they're terrible to try to train. A resentment that a lot of teachers I've talked to have pretty much had with the recent generation. But this is back then, so you kind of not really believe it. But basically, he's having trouble with his work. He doesn't enjoy it a lot, and he decides he wants to win this lottery. But turns out right away you find out that this guy may be tied to black magic, the dark forces, and yeah, he does a satanic ritual to try to win the lottery. Yeah, this guy is worshiping Satan. He's worshiping the devil to try to win the lottery. A very bad combination and route to go down, but he takes it because he's naive and he's trying to win the $10 million. That way he can live his life how he wants. And he's a very psychotic, kind of sociopathic guy. So you kind of get that hint throughout the story that this guy's not mentally up there, and that's why he's going down this route to try to get freedom. So even though it is a resentment and something that a lot of us may have in common, his way of doing it is absolutely absurd. And it did in a little bit way remind me of, I think, the story from Night Shift called I Know What You Need, which is also a little bit of black magic and rituals involving a guy who I think may have looked similar to this guy, so I don't know, but yeah. This guy tries to win the lottery, and turns out he doesn't win the lottery, right? He gets the devil's number as his winning lottery number in his vision from this little, how do you say, like flask or I don't know what he's like, what are those old medieval drinking chalice, from this chalice that he's praying to. He gets that the devil's number will be his winning number for the lottery. Turns out it's not, it's one number off. And he finds out who actually won this prize, and then when he finds out that they live nearby him, he goes and tries to break into their house to find out if, he can, if there was a mistake, if his powers didn't work. But if he has to steal that number or he has to do something, he'll do it. He'll do whatever it takes to win this $10 million. And shocker, goes down a predictable route. Turns out that person he's breaking into may have more than meets the eye, and he may have met his match in a sense. That is a story all I'll give about Snip Snip. This one got a 6.8 out of 10. I think it was well acted by one of the main characters, and it is a little bit of a strange kind of over-the-top premise, which did have some charm and a little bit of fun in how it was done. But overall, it's still a very predictable story. It's kind of weakly done. The ending to the story is pretty dark, and that is why I kind of rated it a little bit higher, because it is a pretty dark, sinister ending. But, a lot of it is just sort of very mediocre, very predictable, and it doesn't really hit all that creative juices and stuff that you would expect when it comes to maybe something of more substance involving the story. So yeah, it gets a 6.8 out of 10. I wouldn't say it has potential. The story's sort of out there, but it's all right done. The execution could have been maybe done better, but it's sort of an out there premise, so I don't know how high I would have ranked. But yeah, that's it for half of my list involving season 1. Already a 40-plus minute video, so yeah, this is very long. My reviews end up being longer, so yeah, that's it for this half of the video. The next half is going to be starting up from the decent to the best of the episodes out of season 1. Which is basically decent to really good as the top. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this first part of season 2 of Tales of Darkside review and ranking. I will see you in part 2, which will also be uploading a little bit later today. All right, that's it for today, or for this video, I should say, and deuces. I'll see you in part 2.